Hey, this is John with Rocky Mountain Unmanned Systems. We are here today to do another webinar broadcast to basically talk about some of the products we have available here at Rocky Mountain. Some of the things that in recent light the AGRAS we'll be talking about today. We'll be talking a little bit about the Sequoia, which is a Micasense multi-spectral camera mounted to an M100, and what we did to make a solution for that, and as well as the Crew View. So we'll start in the backwards order of Crew View, Micasense, and then the AGRAS. So we want to talk a little bit about what we do here at Rocky Mountain Unmanned Systems, and some of the questions I get that's pretty common, as far as what we do, how we do it, why we do it, and the general idea of Rocky Mountain Unmanned Systems. So for the most part, when you go to places to go buy things and purchase things, we have the availability of buying Phantom 4s, Inspires, batteries, all kinds of stuff. But sometimes when people come in, they may jump on our website, they see full packages, high dollar amounts, and that's probably the big thing about putting the packages together. We create packages that are cases, recommended amount of batteries for a certain job. We call these Inspires, but in a sense the package is basically a inspection drone for roof inspections, solar inspections. We move into our police type setups, fire, search and rescue. These are just recommended systems that we put together that incorporate everything into a broad package to look at a specific job. You can always come in and just buy one or two things, but that's basically how we prefer to create these things for our customers, and giving that value add of what we can basically put together for specific jobs. So another one of the big things is that, of course, after becoming a Rocky Mountain Unmanned Systems customer, you pretty much are available to have as much information as we do about firmware upgrades or changes or anything that we may have made a Rocky Mountain specific product to support for those things. We sometimes go through DJI with warranty things, but we try to do as much as we can in-house so that we kind of avoid the communication, if we can, through the DJI stuff. We try to take care of the customers the best we can. And we know in the professional and commercial world, having a radio that's not working and having to send the whole system back, and we just are trying to do, that usually works out best for those that have scheduled events that are going to come up on certain days, but they have issues or problems, they maybe crash their ship the day before. Those are very, very valid and very important things in relative to a hobbyist versus the commercial side. So again, at Rocky Mountain Unmanned Systems, we create these things. Another question I get that's very common is the ability to, how much should I be charging once I buy one of these things? Well, you can ask me those questions, and those are good questions, good valid questions. I'm going to buy an XT, and we are the top dealer for the XT thermal camera, and a lot of guys are going to, spend the money and get one of those, but they don't know exactly how much to charge, and they ask us for advice on how much we should do that for. Well, that's another one of those things that, even though I create a lot of videos and content, and we show a lot of ways that the systems work, we are typically working with the O&M guys. We're working with the people to basically get the information out to you on how the product is going to work in those situations. But we're not actually contracted flyers. We do training internal, and that's a great thing about Rocky Mountain Unmanned Systems. We bring people in, we'll train them, we'll show them how to use the equipment, but we don't necessarily go out there and do the actual contractual work. So that's kind of a general thing about Rocky Mountain Unmanned Systems. Again, welcome to the webinar today. I'm Jon McBride, lead tech. I do a lot of the engineering, creating, and making, and then we emulate those into other packages. One of those things I created just recently was the Crew View. But first, I want to ask a simple poll question here as we get this going.
And the one question is, we want to know just kind of how our presence is out there. Basically, what's the easiest way for you to find out information from Rocky Mountain Unmanned Systems? Are you, brand new Google stuff? You jumping on Facebook? Do you know any of the other things? Is there other ways that you're actually figuring out how to get to us on why you would choose Rocky Mountain as the guys to be the go-to guys, if you will? So that's a really quick poll question there. What we did, like I said, what I created was what we call the RMUS Crew View. And the Crew View is a really awesome system that will be able to basically share the feed that comes off of any P4, P3, M600, Inspire, anything that's spitting out an HDMI output. Once that HDMI output is being spit out from the controller, we're able to basically then transmit that over a long range to different people. Right now I have an Inspire setup that has a thermal camera going right now. And we're able to receive that independently. That has nothing to do with the radio. It's completely separate. And depending on frequencies that we use, we're able to transmit that pretty far on where we're able to go. I do have the radio sitting here, but I'm able to basically change the color palettes. And this just gives the ability to run and have the chance to share the feed when doing search and rescue operations or anything else. This will also work with any of the standard EO cameras. So again, all we're doing is transmitting the HDMI capability out to a device, and the device is being picked up on 1.3, 5.8, whatever you want to choose here. And then the range on it will of course depend on the antennas being used and the broadcasting ability, but making it mobile is probably why I engineered this. Having this simple, easy, we've got power here going, we'll clean it up, we'll make it awesome, we'll make it available for everybody, but the idea again here was to be able to share the FLIR feed or any of the other feeds that were available on the system. So anything that I do on the radio here is available to be seen on the shared Crew View. So what's really cool is that the part that transmits is very, very small, so even the receiver part can be small. We can get directional antennas, mount those on top of command centers and whatnot. And then the transmitting portion is fairly simple, to where we have, excuse me, a connection all the way through. We're transmitting, and we're able to make this system again be working with any of the available DJI products or anything, like I said, that is pushing out in HDMI. Most of the questions we have on this is how far will it go? Well, again, that's a relative to the frequency we use inside of our box to transmit that frequency. But this is pretty much all the pilot has to bring. He can be several miles out. The range on 1.3 can be up to 6 to 8 miles away, depending on, again, antennas that we use. But if you're walking around on the ground and we're able to basically transmit that to anywhere we want to go, and that's kind of the idea on the Crew View. We'll try to have these available, probably within the next few weeks, as soon as I do a couple more tests. But this is really going to be a great product for search and rescue, fire guys, police guys, the ability to just kind of mobily talk to or see what the drone is actually seeing, from far away. So they don't have to be physically connected at all to the system. The HDMI outfeed is really awesome, but again, you're limited to how far the pilot can actually be away from that connection. And with this system, you're able to not have to be so close. So works pretty good. If you have any questions on the specific Crew View there and how it works, what it's going to be capable of doing, again, you can shoot those emails to us and we'll talk about it and see if it would be fitting your needs as far as how it might go. It'll be basically a basic package with the transmitter, the receiver, a viewing source of sorts. We'll then create other things to do viewing portions. So yeah, if you have any questions on that, again, during the whole system, you can ask questions during the whole time, and we'll have some time at the end to try to hit up those questions. So anytime you have any questions on some of the systems we're talking about here, please put them in, and my moderator will help us decipher what questions. So
yeah, so Richard asked, what is the price point
of the Crew View? I'm guessing.
Crew
okay,
View,
so right. We're getting there. As soon as I get all the parts and pieces together, I'm hoping to keep it within a full package to where you get the receiving system, the transmitting system, and a simple plug to plug in. I'm hoping to keep that around $500 to $800. And then that'll depend on frequencies. Again, the viewing source, on whether that needs to be a nice one or not. So right now we're still in kind of a really good proof of concept. We've got some of the systems out there to people to test and give me feedback to make sure that the systems that we have out there are working. So, and again, anytime you have any questions during the whole webinar, please. Richard, I just saw your comment. Yes, I'll try to get one to you as soon as possible. Awesome. Chad, you can shut the Inspire off. You're good to go.
Poll question.
So let's go ahead and hit another poll question here real quick. So what we're kind of asking is, in general, this has been very helpful for us to tailor a little bit of the systems that we make and some of the things. We get requested a lot of the times to do specialized stuff, but we kind of want to make a general purpose, general setup for certain types of commercial entities out there, as well as professional entities. And this will just help us out a little bit in understanding how many people are joining our setups, why they want to do certain jobs, and how to accommodate the best in development of these systems to do it. So this again helps us a ton in tailoring some of the webinar content, as well as the ability to figure out what would be awesome for people. So we have a couple of good questions there: agriculture, fire, search and rescue, power line, solar and roof inspections. And this is just based on the attendees of today, but yeah, this is a great one to kind of ask. Okay, so moving on to the next part. Basically, for the crop guys, we created a system called the Crop Inspector Drone. This will be in lieu with the next portion, and that would be talking about the AGRAS crop sprayer. So the rest of this will be a little bit more in tune with doing agriculture, how it will work, what systems are out there right now to try and do the best setup. So
we had a question from the previous Crew View.
Oh.
So what type of monitor is it being broadcasted to?
So real quick, we'll answer that question real fast on the Crew View. So basically, we're outputting in an AV signal. That's kind of the nice thing about it. It doesn't. There's zero lag when you do that. When you try to transmit in HDMI or high, you know, this is just to give a visual aspect of what's going on. Its resolution is about 480. It's not a lot, but it just again gives somebody on the ground the ability to see what's happening. And see what's going on with the situation. So it's actually just coming in on an AV setup. You can use whatever you want on the AV monitor. So good question on that.
Also, Bruce asked, do you offer any product that is sensitive enough to view inside buildings or through walls?
Good question. So, do we have anything that can see into the buildings and walls? So, in a general sense, we did a webinar last month that talked a little bit about the capability of the FLIR camera. Basically, a thermal camera. Thermal camera, doesn't matter who makes it, they're all pretty much the same. Unless you're doing some way to transmit a signal into something and then receive it back, such as radar, LiDAR, sonar, something like that, that transmits something and reflects information back. That is how you're able to see through things. Unfortunately, the FLIR products, the thermal cameras, do not do that. We call that a passive sensor. So the passive sensor does not allow things to be transmitted out and then bounced back to the sensor. It's only seeing what it sees. So really good question on that. We don't offer anything specific with that. I'm sure as time goes on that it'll be a little bit broader. That'll be important stuff. But one of the other things that people don't realize is that thermal cameras, you cannot see through glass, you cannot see through water, you can't see through snow that's on the ground. You can't see through it very well. So in avalanche stuff and things like that, it would work if the subject was laying on top of the snow, but they could be underneath just a couple of feet, and if they're not radiating enough heat and warming the snow around them, that could be very difficult to see. So anyway, there's a lot of information on the website that talks a little bit about that, about how the FLIR cameras work, how thermal cameras work, how the systems work, different models and different types. So good question.
Okay, Fabrizio wants to know if we have a platform that adapts to the different needs of his customers. That would include agriculture, topography, or solar inspections.
So question was, do we have a platform that adapts to different needs of our customers? So most of the time, a lot of people will buy a Phantom 4. And then they want to put a thermal camera on it. They want to put drop modules on it. They want to put all kinds of fun things on it. And the limitation of the Phantom 4 is what you kind of run into: how long it'll fly, how far it'll fly, capability of it. And once you load a whole bunch of stuff onto a Phantom 4, it becomes difficult. It drops down the performance of the ship. It wasn't originally engineered that way. We like the Inspire. The Inspire can handle a little bit more poop, if you will. It can handle a little bit more power. It can carry a little bit more, and that has been proven several times. So the Inspire is a good one. But at the end of the day, do you need something very large to do carry other larger cameras or larger sensors and things like that? We offer a various amount in from the beginning, or from the small stuff up to the big stuff, but there really isn't anything specific that's going to do all of it. Please understand that. That's like going to a wedding photography, doing wedding photography and only having one camera. So if you actually are capable of having multiple ships, multiple sensors, multiple ways to do, then that also in the commercial professional world allows you to have the ability to, if there's an issue or problem with one system, you can still use another system. So that really good question on that. But we do offer several different types of setups for ships out there that are common. We like to use consumer ships like the Inspire, even though it's on a prosumer side, because of their cost, their value, their ease of use. There's a lot of reasons to do that instead of custom building or custom making certain things for people. So good question, really good question. How are we doing?
Good. Back to the Sequoia.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the Sequoia and the Micasense sensor. So Micasense is a company that basically came up with a sensor that has multispectral sensing. They've been being used for a long time in the manned aircraft area, but pretty fairly new into the drone area only within the last few years. So as time has gone on, we've been getting, crop reports coming and things going. Micasense has kind of worked on their abilities to make this camera work a little bit better. This one model, they make two models that are agriculture related. The Red Edge is one of them, and the Sequoia, which will show up here in just a second, is the other. The Red Edge is a little bit more expensive. It's got one more camera sensor than this one does, so there's 5 bands of light that it's working on. Then the other one is definitely the Sequoia. So as per Micasense, we basically have an M100 here. What we did with the M100 was made the ability to put their camera on the bottom of it. If we can see that, there are 4 sensors on there: red, green, blue, and NDVI. Once it takes this whole system right here, once we put it on here, is completely independent of the flight controller and the ship. So it has nothing to do with that. There's no triggers being done. There's no setups being done. But this sensor on the top, we call this a light sensor. The light sensor is calibrated to help out the picture when taken, the angle of the sun when it reflects back up into the sensor. So this helps calibrate that. So depending on how sunny it is out there, does change the way the image, the metadata in the image might turn out. If there's no sun, if there's no reflectance, what we call reflectance calibration, that is relative to what time the pictures were taking, you can get false data, you know, that isn't very good data if you don't have a light sensor on there. So most of the agriculture type sensors are going to incorporate the reflective calibration or a starting point of reflection calibration. If it's cloud cover, that's going to change. If the ship is angled slightly and this is shadowing over, that's going to change. So in real time, it's able to take a picture in real time and actually have that sensor calibrated to help out the readings that are coming off of the plants when doing that. The reason why we made the gimbal. So when you get the Sequoia, it comes in a little package, little camera, little sensor, little piece. We were incorporating this because we had found from Micasense that the best thing to do is try to keep this camera as completely flat as possible. We just talked about the sunlight sensor moving around, and that's okay, but this staying as flat as possible instead of being hard mounted to the bottom of the ship gives you better results, nothing more. This isn't a gimmicky thing. This is recommended by Micasense to have some way to keep the camera flat. Hard mount it to the bottom of an Inspire, or hard mount it even to the bottom of a system here. And anytime the ship tilts and takes that picture, the data there is not recorded on this camera. So by us going ahead and making a mechanical gimbal to keep it as flat as possible when taking those pictures helps the data a little bit. The nice thing about the M100 is that we are actually able to put another sensor on there. So we have the bottom independent working. Turn it on, ready to go, start taking pictures. And then on the top we have an X3 that can be working as part of that. And you can be doing ortho mapping with Drone Deploy or Pix Mapper or Maps Made Easy, whatever you want to choose. This thing's going to be having a certain swath, since you're going to be mainly using this for the swath path of this. That's how I would set up Drone Deploy, is to have the swath correct for the Micasense sensor, but at the same time you can almost do double mapping. So some of the systems we're still kind of testing to make sure that those results would work or how they'll work, but that's always been a question of where is the ship going? I want to see what it does. Well, again, independent Micasense sensor, independent system, doesn't have anything to do with the ship whatsoever. Can put an X3 on there so you can see where it's going if you need to, running through the Go app. This is running a twin battery system. So it's a fairly light payload. It's not as heavy as an X5. You can run twin batteries on this ship without overdoing the payload capability of the matrice. So full GPS, you've got all of that built in. We just did a broad mechanical setup to help out with the images as they come through on the Micasense. So that's kind of like how that's basically what we created with our Crop Inspector Drone. So that'll be available. I mean, we're moving them along. We're doing testing. We're coming into the non-growing season. There's not going to be much, but we want to make sure performance of the ship, performance of the camera, and performance of the whole system is actually working really well. So, questions?
Yep. So James wants to know about the Crew View. If you can put the receiver on a router so that you could transmit Wi-Fi to a laptop.
Can you put say that one more time?
So can you put the receiver on a router so that you could transmit Wi-Fi to a laptop?
Yes, you can. Again, remember that the signal is an AV signal. So from AV transportation, what we're trying to do is just decrease the amount of lag. We're trying to decrease the amount of lag. So Lightbridge does have a fair, I would call it a little bit of lag in there that Lightbridge is transmitting the signal. And then when you run it through a lot of other processing routers and stuff like that, you can do that fairly rapidly. This is just a little bit simpler way, so nobody has to have a whole bunch of devices and other things. And again, we're hoping to make this a little bit smaller and tighter. But as long as you can pipe in an AV signal into whatever you want to view, or if you want to rebroadcast that, that's fine too. So.
Okay, Bruce wants to know if those are DJI factory leg extensions.
So, no, not on that one. So the one if we're talking about the M100 specifically, are those factory leg extensions on there? No, the X3, you have two of them that are capable. They are factory, but there's two versions that raise the height just a little bit. So we've got the taller ones on there to hold that Micasense gimbal. Good question on that. They're available independently if you want to buy them separately, or they actually automatically come with the X5 upgrade kit. So if you're going to put an X5 on the bottom of your Matrice 100, that extension of leg extension is available in that kit. So good question.
Okay, Wes is wondering how much for the Sequoia gimbal.
$1 million for the Sequoia. No, I'm just kidding. So it's going to be a complete package. Currently, right now, we're offering it with an M100, the gimbal, the thing. As soon as we can define to make sure that the whole system works, we'll go ahead and offer that as a add-on to your already said Matrice 100. Please remember, this is engineered right now to work with the Matrice 100. Will there be possible inspire? Yes, there's a possibility we'll go into that, but just the M100 right now, we'll work on that. Cost-wise, still coming out. We haven't really come up with a definitive number on that, but it shouldn't be too bad. I wouldn't expect it to be more than, again, $800 to $1,000 for the whole setup. So, any other questions there, Jacob?
Wes is wondering, what is the flight time mapping with the Sequoia on the Matrice with your gimbal?
So we were able to do a flight the other day, just hovering, moving back and forth. We didn't give it a full map test, but we were just letting it run to make sure the gimbal was operating correctly, everything was going correctly. We were running on TB48s, remember, TB48s, around 25 to 30 minutes, and that was just depending on how we were flying it. Weather was very easy, not a major thing, but that swath is going to be very important on how big the coverage needs to be on the Micasense sensor. So let me show you real quick a handout that we have, and these are all available in the webinar that talks a little bit about the Micasense sensors and everything else. Remember, we're making the gimbal, fitting it to an M100, but it would behoove you to understand exactly how the sensor works, what information, where to upload it to if you want to have a report generated, and whatnot. So what was there one more question there?
Yeah, do you have outlets in the farm belt for your products?
I do not. we do not have any real specific places that we're doing. Again, we create the products. Hopefully somebody will figure it out on how they want to use it, how they're going to use it. We'll give you the best example of what to do with it, but that is something to consider, is having places that are able to do that. Your service providers basically out there using some of the equipment. So anything else?
I think
I'm not sure on that one. Who is that from?
From James.
James, you were saying to find out the best way to light up an ICP area. You need to get a hold of me on that one. I'll give you some examples on what we've done to do that. So anyway, so let's go ahead and show that handout real quick on the Micasense sensor. These are available to you to download so that you have them. Again, very who of you to run and understand the capability of them. how they work and what they do. So right here on the side, as we're taking a look at this on the data sheets, as we scroll up, we can see that the different sensor that they're able to see: green, red, red edge, and near infrared. So those are the different sensors that are on there, and the visible light that's able for it to capture. Once this data is collected, we're able to actually send these to Micasense. They have a upload program called Atlas. Once the data is actually collected, that will spit out and process a little bit of that. These are capable of basically doing 64 gigabyte of space and capability. That's a lot of images, by the way. So that's what you can do with inside of the internal system. So you don't have to have an SD card, but on the other side you do. Different examples of what you can fit them on. If we go back up just a little bit there, Jacob, we can take a look at that setup on looks like a Solo, and how they put the light sensor on the top and gimbal on the bottom, and then on the other side would be a fixed sensor. And this is just over time that it isn't that it's not working in the manner of being fixed, but you get better results again just coming up with the gimbal. So we will have a gimbal available for the Red Edge as well, likely going on an M100 or an M600. So take a look at all this pamphlets, different things. This system, we carry the Sequoia and the Red Edge. Can be bought independently if you want to experiment, but incorporating it with the gimbal is kind of what we recommend. Any other questions there, Jacob, on that section, that portion?
No, I think we're good.
Good to go?
Yep.
Okay, well, let's get to the big dog. If you have no more questions on the Sequoia, or if you'd like to ask a little bit more further questions on performance and capability of the Sequoia, then we'll go ahead and go from there. So you can contact us, email us, call us, all of those different ways to do it. You can, of course, ask me on Facebook. So the M100 AGRAS, or the MG-1 AGRAS. So I created a group in Facebook. It's just the AGRAS at RMUS. I believe, and don't quote me on this, that we are pretty much the only ones in the United States that are carrying the AGRAS in a commercial. Let's figure out how it works. Let's get it in the air. Let's try to get out as much information as possible on capability, flyability. After creating that group, I had a really great guy that came in. His name's Robert, that is very knowledgeable in normal agriculture crop spraying with manned aircraft. And I appreciated the amount of information he was asking. I mean, he was asking some very technical questions. How many microns does the sprayer spray? You know, knowing what kind of pesticides you can put in the tank, how much time it would take to. I mean, these are great questions on performance, and that's what we want to deliver in the Facebook group. So we can put a link on our RMUS page to that group. It is moderated and run by me, but let's talk about some of the components that come with the AGRAS, and that will be kind of our general information of what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, what the process is. Again, we're getting into late October, into November, and it's probably not going to be really great growing season, but this will allow us to do a lot of the other capabilities as far as flying it, running it, and getting some things out there. So we'll start with let's start with the boring one, the battery. So one of the big questions I get on the group, or just reading a little bit about it, is that this is kind of deceptive on the way this is labeled, but you can see down here it's 12,000 milliamps, and we have it saying that it's a 22.2 volt battery. So there's actually two of those in there. So this is a 12 cell setup. 12S running 44.4 volts instead of 22.2 volts. And when we have basically one side that runs the system, or one side that runs, the other side that runs, and into the battery. This is a fully encased battery. It is waterproof. I wouldn't really want to test that, but basically it's sealed. You can't get water inside of it. You can spray the AGRAS off, but I would recommend taking the battery off. On this one side is the balance leads for all 12 cells. That's what this is for. So this unit is going to balance all of your cells independently and how that's connected up. So the battery does have a on and off check your level button here, and that is available. But once you plug in the AGRAS, the system just turns right on. So there is no press it and press it once. You plug it in and the system turns on. You can turn the battery on like normal, and you can turn the battery off like any DJI product there, same way. But again, once the connection is made, the battery automatically turns on, and so it's really not relative to sit and push the button. So it's more just a connection, very fast. We'll go into, when we show the ship, which is sitting over here on the side, how the battery fits in there and everything else. On the side of the charger. So the charger is huge. You can see it's physically big. It's large, but it's a very strong charger. Another smart charger setup. Power button on the top. We have the display systems on there to tell us what's going on with the battery and how it's charging. But connection-wise, we have these little open doors that come open on each side. This is capable of charging 2 batteries at once. So as we can see right there, we have one connection on one set of series of 6, the other connection on the other side for the other 6, and then we have the balance lead to balance each of the individual batteries. This data port is for other things, which doesn't really give me much explanation on what specifically it's for, but it doesn't have anything on here to communicate to the battery. I would imagine that on this port right here, which is, you can see the four little system, that is your battery monitor communication port, basically. So the Inspire, when it tells you what your levels are at, what your each cell is at, that's your COM port from the battery to the ship. So, but this is like I said, it's a really big charger. I believe it retails for $9.99. I believe it is. So it's pretty heavy duty charger. Time to charge. So from dead, we've been getting normal charging times around an hour. Pretty typical for most batteries this big, chargers and whatnot. So it's about an hour to charge a single battery. But again, it's got a twin port setup, so you can charge 2 at the same time. This is capable of doing inputs of 110 or 240. So you can do, or 220. You can do both. So it'll do either one when you plug in. Kind of a funny thing about this charger, and DJI is a little interesting on that, is they sent all of the units with a Australian plug instead of any other plug. So you Aussies out there, DJI said, good to go. We're going to make it an all Aussie plug. So we had to convert that one. We have adapters for them that we sell, or that will be included with the system. So one of the other things about the AGRAS and the charger, the battery, as far as pricing goes, again, RMUS, as I talked about earlier, puts a complete package together. There's no specific pricing on the system, the shop. We just are incorporating everything together so that you have several batteries, the AGRAS itself, the battery, the chargers, even a case. So GPC is working on a case right now. Good job, GPC. Rick and those guys are working on a case to put this in so that it can be put in the back of a truck or a farm truck or anything like that, pulled out. The ship can be pulled out. So we're anticipating a case here shortly for it. So that'll be really great to keep everything in one spot. So let's talk about the radio. So some of the physical things about the radio, it looks just like an Inspire radio. It looks just like an M600 or any other radio out there that DJI makes with the switches made. The one thing would be the sprayer panel. So the sprayer panel is plugged in on the back into the CAM port plug, and your Inspire has the exact same thing: a USB plug for your app and or your device, a CAM's plug. There's the USB micro USB and the HDMI port. Good common question I get all the time: can you put a camera on it? Currently, there's not a camera set up, but when we go over to the AGRAS, I'll explain a few things. The port of the HDMI, I think, is just there because it's a common radio form factor of Inspire, DJI M600, any of those. When we get into the sprayer portion, let's take a close look at that. I'm reaching pretty far there. Okay, so over here is battery level of the ship, where on sections we set up on an A point and B point. You do not need drone deploy for this system. It has its own internal setup to basically say where point A is going to start, and that's that little button right, that little dot right there, where point B is going to end, and then how far across when you go to do your mapping. So drone deploy is not needed in this system. It has its own. This will tell you direction that it's going. We have right here the amount. I can see that. That is your flow amount for your pump right here. How fast it's pumping your pesticide or whatever you're pumping out of it. That's how fast the flow is going. This one is how high away from the crop it is. So what is the distance away from the crop that you want to be, or when it senses it. And then this one is your how fast is the ship moving while it's spraying. So these are just a very simplified, it didn't need to be very complicated as far as what you can see. Up here on the top is whether you're out of spray or whether you're full. A couple of the other systems there, whether it's spraying or not while it's spraying, and return to home. There's a couple other statuses here, battery status of your batteries and whatnot too. So this is supposed to be waterproof. I wouldn't test that, but the gimbals are made to have dirty hands on them, so you don't get stuff, junk inside of them, dirt inside of them. That's why these little rubber covers on them, which is not very common with the other stuff. So you can have dirty hands. And the other one would be the switch here, different modes that the ship flies in. It doesn't have retractable landing gear, so this is usually used or reserved on the landing gear switch. But what this is doing is changing the mode in which the ship flies. We have basically a manual mode, then this is your smart mode, and then a manual plus mode. So in order to even start the ship, you have to go in manual mode. When we're ready to actually give it a course or give it a space that it's gonna fly, we're gonna click that up to the smart mode and then tell it what to do up here by a couple of different buttons that are on the radio. These are again a little bit different than the standard Inspire. They're labeled a little bit different, and what they're able to do as far as functions go: faster, more pump going on. Here's this one has got the you can change the speed of the ship. So there's a couple of different functions here. I am going to have a full video, our experience, flight times, capability, windy conditions, not windy conditions. I'll have a full thing set up so that we can go through that. But there's plenty of information on our website to do that. Check into that. So for now, though, we're going to go ahead and show you this quick start guide that's available on DJI's website as well as ours to kind of show you the ability to, we got her, there we go. And these, again, all of these handouts are available on the side here.
When you fold up, there's this little turn piece right here. You get it lined up on the threads and tighten her up, and the whole thing is pretty stout. The whole system right there. It's pretty strong system right there. So about the motors and the props. So since we're running a 12S system, these are the exact same motors and exact same output, props, and everything as an M600. Exactly the same. As soon as we start doing a little bit more tests on it, I'll be able to give you some flight times. But what's really hard about how much power, how much it's all going through, is knowing on the tank how much we are actually spraying, and how again big the swath is going to be, the application. This is the great thing about having some information from our guy on Facebook, Robert, giving us some of the manufacturers that make pesticides and whatnot, and their requirements to put it down on the crop. A lot of these guys that are doing aerial spraying right now, man, that's great information. I'm a drone guy. It's going to be very helpful to talk with those guys and get some ideas on that. We're talking about the battery connection here. So the battery sits right on top of the tank, right on top of the tank. It is fairly easy to switch. It's just, there's a spot that it sits in right now, and it's not Velcroed down. So there's a spot that sits in the tank, and there's a piece of Velcro to Velcro that down so it doesn't slide around. But swapping out the battery is fairly quick. And then we have our connections right here. And again, the idea here was to basically put it in there, make the connection, you're good to go. You don't have to turn the battery on or anything like that. The system's on and ready to go. Other good questions that people ask, so I can answer them right now. What flight controller is in here? This is a version of the A2 flight controller. It's not an A3. It is a version of the A2. So up on the top here, we're going to have our sensor for GPS, compass, all that other stuff will be up on the top. The A2 flight controller is a really good flight controller. The status LED light is on the back side of that. Very similar to the A2 operation, if you're familiar with that. Purples and reds and yellows, all the same, very similar colors that you would normally see with an A2. It does also have a light bridge inside there. So even though the light bridge is there, that is because of the radio system. So the radio has a light bridge in it, and that's exactly like the Inspire and the Matrice and everything else. So there's the light bridge, and the light bridge isn't specifically done to be used as a, what do you want to call it? It's not to be used as sending picture information, but more or less of control of the ship, running of the ship, and the flight controller that's inside. So basically, the light bridge system, if you were to take that portion out and put a Futaba radio or anything else, you could do that with this if you wanted to, but not necessary. That's what the light bridge is there for, is for controllability, not transferring picture. There's nowhere on here that you can actually plug in a camera or anything else, but that'll be something that does come up quite often. Might be an RMUS product that we actually are able to put something on there so that the pilot can see where it's going and what it's doing and everything else. But it would be really cool that when DJI makes this platform, 8 blades, this big, those batteries, and is able to basically fly larger payloads on an airframe like this. So at any rate, so there's a filter on the back here, right here on the back. It's an air filter. It is waterproof. Another one of the things that you can do in the thing spraying is that you might get it dirty, it might get gross. You can actually remove the battery, then spray the whole system down with water. You don't have to worry about getting it too wet. Wipe it all down. You're still going to run into corrosion problems if you're not careful or anything like that. Lubing your motors, making sure that the connections aren't getting corroded. But really awesome that they made this pretty much a waterproof system. And I say water resistant. It's not super, you can't go dunk it in a tank. But really good that they're able to do that. Thought I had a little bit about that. So let's see, that's kind of the main components of this. Please stick with us on the Facebook group to learn a little bit more about it as we are flying and doing some tests and further tests. So happy to do any other questions on Facebook if you have them. So questions, Jacob?
Yeah, Bruce wants to know what is the primary application for this unit, what crops will it cover?
Okay, so what is the primary application of the AGRAS? We're going to come back down here and we'll just put that in the shot. What is the primary application of it? That is a good question. So the idea, if you look at normal crop spraying, if you're looking at the normal stuff, let's see, how's that right there? If you're looking at the normal stuff of trying to get out there and use a real manned aircraft, obviously this is not going to do what a real manned aircraft can do. I mean, let's be honest. It doesn't have the capacity, it doesn't have the capability of doing that. So doing large corn fields or acreages of stuff is probably not what it's going to be good at. It is good at spot precision spraying, and that's what we're going to basically try to figure out. What crops will it be good for? That'll depend on the type of spray that is needed for the crop. That's going to depend on how much application it's going to do. It'll depend on whether or not, again, how much it'll fly. Some of the specs and some of the numbers that are coming out from DJI is that it can do about 10 acres in 1 hour. So that would be basically at least 2 to 3 battery changes, 10 acres in 1 hour. At least 2 to 3 to do 10 acres. Can you use it for weed control? Yeah, we can use it for weed control. We can, instead of using for crops, there's some portions around fields or stuff like that. We can use it for that. One of my awesome guys that I talk to all the time, Garrett Brill. Garrett was like a firefighter. He asked if he could put diesel fuel in this thing and spray it. Why would you want to put diesel fuel in the sprayer? Because of controlled fire burns and whatnot, you're able to get that out there and possibly get the fluid down on the deck. It sounds crazy, but you know, it's a solution, it's a possible solution for stuff. So will the pump handle diesel fuel? Will the sprayers be able to handle diesel fuel over time? We don't know, but that's a really good question. So the applications could be, if you want to call it, pretty endless, but there are going to be some limitations on that. So, any other questions there on
No more questions.
on the AGRAS? If you guys had any other further questions you want to ask right now, we probably got another 5 or 10 minutes here, 5 minutes or so, to answer any other questions on this, on what you got.
We did have a question earlier about the, what we thought about the M600.
What my personal opinion about the M600?
Right.
Awesome machine. End of story. M600 is an awesome machine. Is there, I don't know, but in that size of carrying that big of a payload, stability of the ship, capability of the ship, light bridge system, all that stuff kind of incorporated together. DJI familiarity. I'm going from an Inspire to an M100. I'm not going from an Inspire to an entirely microcopter, an Alta, something else different. This just stays consistent with that. But I do love the M600. It's a great machine. Everyone out of the box that we have built, and we've built, I believe, 23 or 24 so far. I'm on my 25th one out there in the shop, I believe. So every single one, every test flight, every setup has just been fantastic. It's been a great ship. So you can tweak it, mess with it, change it. So that's my opinion on the M600. Any other questions there, Jacob? No? Okay, so just to kind of summarize, Rocky Mountain Unmanned Systems, what do? We create packages, we create systems, we create the ability to kind of put things together. Instead of buying one-off systems, we can change them, manipulate them, but this gives you kind of general pricing on what the whole package would be for certain jobs that we have found in the market to be. We call these RMUS products even though we're using DJI stuff, but it's incorporating all the parts and pieces and solutions for certain parts of the commercial and municipal markets. So really important there. That's what RMUS does. We talked a little bit about the Crew View today. The Crew View was kind of based around the idea of sharing the feed that's coming off of a device. So there's other guys that are out there creating some fantastic stuff. My buddy Grayson out there doing some fantastic stuff right now to try and again get that information out there. The more information a person has, the better they are at making decisions. So getting that feed off of the Inspire, the M600, or anything like that in the search and rescue, police, fire, whatever it is, even directors, you know, if they can have the ability to see That's what the Crew View is why I created that system, and what I'm trying to solve with that system, to be able to be far away from the transmitting or the actual ship. Sequoia Micasense. So putting it on an M100, creating a gimbal for it, starting to, they found the importance of trying to keep the camera level. We discussed a little bit of that today. So remember, if you have any questions on that specific setup, please keep an eye on the website, because we'll be showing some different ways to get that incorporated into the M100 and sold as a separate unit. The last one would be the AGRAS. So still fairly new. I've only got one or two flights on it as far as Jon McBride goes. I will be honest with you, I slam this thing around like an Inspire. The thing handles fine. It does great. Dropping 22 pounds of weight off of it, though, that can be kind of a handful when it's kind of windy and light and making decisions. The more weight, the more stable the ship is. Well, you drop 22 pounds of fluid off of there, and at the end of the flight, you might be making some big decisions. So we'll get some further video out there on how that works, and how it's going to be flying capability, carrying capability, spraying capability, and how easy it will be to try and set up some of the mapping and courses and flight times, like I said, get those more spec answers out there. So
One more poll question.
one more poll question. So this last poll question, what service products we provide is most important to your customers, or to your company rather? The ability to do customization, the ability to do customer service for you, training people, our expertise in different types of setups that we have out there, thermal, drone. What is the most important thing that we can provide to your company? And if it comes down to specifically customizing things, remember that is usually a one-off setup, doing one thing or two things that might be able to move into a viable product into the market, So guys that are like, hey, I want to take some bouncy whatever ball and drop these from the bottom of it, but I don't have a way to do it, that takes some time and understanding on how to get certain systems. We are requested to do a sonar sensor on the top of one to do external building inspections, and after explaining, hey, nobody has ever done that before. There is some dollars to understand in the customization of things, making things in that way. If you have any other questions on any of the stuff we were talking about today, there's that. We're starting to record a little bit more of the webinars out there, get that information out there so you can re-review. We kind of edit them up a little bit, but please pay attention to Facebook pages, as well as we do have a YouTube page, links on our website as well, to go there and get some more information. But at any time, please email john@rmus.com for any technical information. That's jon@rmus.com. If you have any questions and want to send me an email that's a little bit bigger, than posting on Facebook. Also, giving us a call. We have several salespeople that can help you out. Technical questions come to John, but 801-316-3250. That's also on the website, but any of that information that we can help you out with, we're happy to do so. So, anything else, Jacob? You got any other questions?
Thank you, John.
All right, you're welcome, guys. Thanks for attending the webinar today. Look forward to the next one next month. We'll, my moderator, helper, and awesome guy, Jacob, from RMUS, to help us get these things kind of coordinated. So next month we'll have a date, we'll have times as well, and the subjects that we'll be discussing and talking about. So thanks again for joining us on this webinar. Please send any questions or anything like that to us. We'd be happy to help you out.